We are up to today's daf is daf Chav Daled. We're up to actually Chav Daled Amud Beis on top of the page of my Rava, and this is what we spoke about yesterday. We have a concept called Ein Iser Cholal Iser. You cannot have one Iser on top of a second layer on top of an original Iser because there's no way for it to reside. But there's a big machlekes in Tanoim. We had in many places whether there are exceptions. With the second Isser that's coming down has more features than the first Isser. So we have the concept of Isser Moisiv, we have the concept of Isser Koil, we have those that say no Isser could ever be Chal, regardless. But then we have that some will say that Isser Moisiv is Chal, and some will go a step further and say Isser Koil is Chal. Just to recap, what's the difference between Isser Moisiv and Isser Koil? Isser Koil is where, for example, a nevela, something which is not kosher, you're not allowed to eat all year round. What happens? We're just explaining the difference between an Isser Koil and an Isser Moisiv. So generally, if the same Isser, you make a shvu, I won't eat bread, and then you make another vow, you won't eat bread. The second vow has nowhere to move. Something treif. Treif is Asar a whole year. Comes on Yom Kippur, there's another layer called Yom Kippur. So if I ate on Yom Kippur, how many Avedas did I do? Well, if you follow implicitly Ein Isa Chalalisa, then there's only one Aveda. You ate treif, not Yom Kippur. However, this is called an Isa Koil. Why? Because before Yom Kippur, you were not allowed to eat treif, but you were allowed to eat everything else that's kosher. Comes Yom Kippur came along and put a ban that it proscribed eating any kind of food. And once Yom Kippur is chal on things which are permitted on the second piece, it drags along also things which are already forbidden anyway. That's called Isser Koil. It included since it has somewhere to land, so it includes in it other areas that generally would not have been included. So that's called Isser Koil. But as far as an Avela is concerned, you're not allowed to eat before, you're not allowed to eat today. Nothing changed. Just because the title, the label is different, doesn't matter. Isser Moisiv is in the very thing that we're talking about. Another layer was added to that thing that didn't exist before. For example, chaylev treifa fats. You of a carbon. You're not allowed to eat treifa fats of a carbon, and it belongs to the mizbech. If it became nicer, then not only you can no longer eat it, but now the mizbech, you can't put it on the base of mikdash. It is nicer. So this very same fat now has an additional isser to someone before it was permitted, and now it became usser. That's called isser moisiv. You're adding on to it. So isser moisiv is much stronger than isser koil. So you have tanoim that say yes, isser moisiv we agree that it's chal, but isser koil they say it doesn't chal because it lands somewhere else. Why should it move sideways this way? That's sideways. This is right on top of it. It's vertical. It adds to this very thing. So it comes along Rava and says the following, 2 lines on the top. Amar Rava says, Rava, my time of the man, the Isle Isakil. What's the logic behind those Tanoim that believe in the principle of Isakil, which Rabbi Yechon before told us? And Rabbi Yechon learned Pshat in the Mishnah, that if you make a Shavua, that you won't eat, let's say, kosher food and treifa food. Why? It's chal, because it's called Isakil. Since it's chal on the kosher food, the shavua, it's also chal on the treifa food. So this principle, why do they hold Isser Koil? Because Midav Isser Moisiv, it's the same logic as Isser Moisiv. Oman de Potter, and the one who says that no, I don't believe Isser Koil, the Leslie, Ki Amad Isser Moisiv, when do I believe Isser Moisiv? B'chad Chatich, in the very same piece. And first it was only Chaylet forbidden to you, and now that it became nicer, this very same piece became also to something that was mutter before, to the Mizbeach, that's called Isser Moisiv. But B'shtei Chatich is because now the Isser coincides with something else. You should move it sideways. That laminin. We don't go sideways. Why should it go sideways? It stays there where it could land, it lands. We could reside. But here, since it was already treif before Yom Kippur, why should Yom Kippur add to it? And the Amar Rav, and we already had an Abshimon, for example, doesn't hold of either Isser Moisiv or Isser Koil. That's why Yom Kippur, if it's nablo, whatever it is, you only chay for treif. Rava says Rava, Leman the Isla Isser Koil says Rava our Chiddush. The one who says that you believe in Isser Koil, Omar Shavua Shaloi Oichel Te'enim, he made a shvu, I won't eat figs. Okay, he's not allowed to eat figs. If he would have made a second shvu, I won't eat figs, the second shvu is meaningless. And if he ate figs, he'd only be liable for one of them. But because of Omar Shavua Shaloi Oichel Te'enim Anavim, he then came along and added, I won't eat figs and grapes. Now the grapes, was mutter to you before. So the shvua definitely is chal on the grapes. And the question is now, does it, if you ate the figs, are you going to get two averis for the first shvua and the second shvua? Migu the chayla another chayla nabatenim. That's called isa koil because the second shvua is effective, at least as far as grapes are concerned. So then it moves sideways, it shifts sideways also to the figs. Now the obvious question that the Rishonim want to know is, what is Rava adding to what Rabbi Yochanan told us? Rabbi Yochanan told us isa koil. He told us he made a shvua, I won't eat kosher and shkotzim and muslim treif. It's chal. You eat treif. You're chay. That's what Chacham say in the Mishnah. So what's Rava adding to Rabbi Yochanan? So what? So Taisa says maybe what he's adding is in Rabbi Yochanan's case, one of the isurim you made up, and one of the isurim existed before from the Eibishter. Remember, we made a distinction sometimes between haboy the atzmai, habom elov. So the treif came from the Eibishter, the shvua from you. So maybe in that case, you can say, okay, it moves sideways. But if both isurim are exactly the same, both of them are your shvua, maybe we don't move it sideways. And that's Rabba's chiddush. That even though the first was a shvua won't eat figs, and then you made a shvua won't eat figs and grapes, once the shvua is effective for the grapes, it moves sideways to the figs.
Not just the way of speaking, right? I'm giving you the whole list of things that
But it's not a historical statement. You make, I swear I won't eat. Yeah, but words are very effective. You gotta be careful what you say. Says the Gemara, Pshita, what's Rabbi's chiddush is not obvious. Most no. I would have thought Easter haba me'ela b'amrina. When do we say Easter koil? For example, Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur treif is something that Yibishter made. Yom Kippur is something Hashem gave us. So therefore, it shifts sideways. But here you created this. So who said that it carries over sideways? Based on this Gemara here, that's where Tosfos and other Rishonim say maybe that's Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan only holds that okay, you made up a shvua, but one of them at least is originally treif. Okay, now we're going to have a question. So Rabba's son, Rabba had a son called Rabba. Obviously, he liked his Talmud Rabba very much, and he called his own son Rabba as well. He said, "Yesh oichel achila achas." It's possible. Till the Mishnah, we're going to learn this. We're going to have 6 answers on the question we're going to ask right now. That sometimes it says a person can eat one. We had a number of times in Makkah. You do one act, and yet you have so many different averis. Yesh oichel achila achas. Sometimes you can have one eating, and the chayvela arba chatois. You committed 4 sins that require kamachatas, and va'osham echad, and one sin that requires an osham. The eluhain. These are they. Tomei she'achal chaylev. If a tomei ate treifa fats, you're tomei, and you ate treifa fats. So the first of it is that you ate treifa fats. The fact your tummy is irrelevant. You ate treifa fats, and then v'hunoisim and hamugdoshin, and then you made it hegdish. Then you made it hegdish, and the hegdish is chal on the treif. So now you're going to get an aveira for eating a tummy, eating hegdish. Now, why is the hegdish chal on this chayil? Very also to you. That's called isa koil. Why is it isa koil? Because before the only part of the animal you couldn't eat was the fats, the treif of fat. Now you can't eat the entire animal. So kodesh. And then noiser is a iser moisif. Because before it was permitted to the base to the mizbeach, and now it's forbidden. Tameh is an isa koil, because before the only thing you couldn't eat was this particular animal. Now you can't eat any kodesh. And then on Yom Kippur again is an isa koil, because now not only this animal is forbidden, but any food is forbidden. So therefore isa koil, and therefore you did 4 chatois and 1 Asham. The Asham is that you ate from Hegdish, you were moyel, you're stealing from the Beis HaMikdash. And when you steal from the Beis HaMikdash, you have to bring a carbon Hasham Meilus. So 5 carbon, 4 chatas, and 1 okay, so 1 chatas is Chaylev, 1 is Neisser, 1 is Yom Kippur, and 1 is a Tameh who's eating Kodesh. 4 chatos, and then you're stealing from Hegdish, that's the Asham. Says the Gemara, that's what the case. Meir argues. He says, "Afim hoisa Shabbos. If it was happened to be Shabbos, but you and you carry it out, chayiv also chayiv for carrying on Shabbos." Rashi says, "What about Yom Kippur? Not carrying Kippur either." Regarding Yom Kippur, we had a machlekes if you're allowed to, if erev v'haitzah applies to Kippur or not, and let's say they hold that it doesn't apply. Or Tosfos says he meant the same thing, but you can even add more: Shabbos and Yom Kippur. I say Yom Kippur is included, but Shabbos and Yom Kippur if he's carrying it out. But what was the mayor thinking? And look what he says there. What is that? We're talking about eating, and you're talking about carrying. It's different. So you can do. He's painting while he's. I mean, what's it? So they're trying to explain. No, the mayor holds. When are you chayiv? When you put it down. If you're eating, when you chew it and it goes into your stomach, that's your hanacha. So it's to do with eating, and therefore he calls that avzeh. Now the question is obvious. If you're trying to compound Avedas, according to Rav, there's another Aveda. You made a shvua. V'imisa mishkach l'chamish, another chatas. Carbon for example, sha'ama shvua shloichel tomorrow v'chelev. I make a shvua, I won't eat dates and treifah fats. Now normally you make a shvua, I won't eat treifah fats, it doesn't work. But because you said I won't eat dates and treifah fats, it's koil. Now we did learn before that in order for a shvua to be a valid shvua bita, you have to be hein v'lav. You have to be able to say no. It's really yes. How can you make a shvua? I will eat treifah fats. You can't. But because you said tomorrow in the chayil, remember not all fats are treif. Chayil with fats could be kosher fats, treif fats. Depends where it is and which region of the animal it is. Because you said tomorrow in the chayil, it sounds like you're searching for things which are permitted. So therefore, you could say a hain on this exactly this shvur. I'll eat tomorrow in the chayil because the chayil there would be kosher chayil. So the Gemara, the question is, the chayil answer the Gemara. Kik Tani, what are we talking about? Isar haba me'ela. We're talking about an Isar that comes from itself. But Isar haba ma'atzmai, but an Isar that comes by itself, like Tani. We're talking about over here, Yisurim, sorry, I'm asking me from you. We're talking about Yisurim, Kodesh, Nisa, and all of these things. But you want to include Shavuos. Shavuos is it, you created the Isar. That's not what we're talking about. So the obvious question is, what do you mean? What's Hegdish? But Hegdish. Hegdish also, you created these. So I consecrated the animal. So you're right, but we're not talking about that kind of Hegdish. We're talking about a B'choy. You didn't make it holy. It's Kaddish or Bet Nima. As soon as it's born, it's holy. And therefore, that's what we're talking about. Don't throw in Shvua, which is totally outside of the purview of this case. That's answer number one. There'll be 6 answers. Answer number 2. The thing that you cannot repeal. Shavuot, Shvuah, you can repeal like Tanya, because it could be we're trying to say fixed Averis. Here you can undo the whole Aveda by going to a Rav and saying, look, I want to be Mataneda, I want to unravel my vow. So you want to ask a question, Hegdish can also be undo. How do you Hegdish? Answering we just said we're talking about B'chor. You can't undo the B'chor. It comes for itself. Third answer. We're only talking about carbon kavua, a fixed carbon chatas. Carbon oil, yeah, look, Tony. You're talking about shul, which is oil. We're not talking about that. So what do we mean? How do you tame, a tame, she'achalos hakodesh, a tame that ate tell me ate kodesh. What's kind of we had in the first Mishnah? What's the carbon over there to do? So what about Nasi? On Nasi and Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Lezer holds Nasi may be seen. Rabbi Lezer holds if the Nasi committed a sin, he brings a fixed carbon, but only when it comes to Migdash Mikdasha. When it comes to other things, he brings what do you call it? When it comes to when he makes a shavua, if we're talking about a nasi, if he makes if he goes into the base hamikdash, he brings a fixed carbon, and therefore we're not talking about oil of the. You want to bring in a shavua. What carbon do you make by shavua? Oil of the. We're not talking about oil of the. You asked me a question. What tell me you're going to make also oil of the, but not by nasi. Rabbi Lezer holds exclusively by tumah. A nasi, brings a fixed carbon, different than everybody else. So we're not talking about oil of the at all. Don't bring in shvua. Rav Ashi says, "Kiktoni media the chayle kishir." Everything here there's a shir, kazais, whatever shir. Shvua the chayle above shir look tony, but shvua is effective. We learned before. According to Bekiva, always, and according to Chacham, if you clearly say, "I won't eat a drop of it," it's effective. And we're talking about things that have all in common is that you have to have a certain amount. So you might have Hegdish. Hegdish doesn't work by kazayis. You're over Hegdish even less kazayis. You need when you're stealing from Hegdish, it has to be a valuable fruit. It's still a shear. Doesn't matter if it's the same shear or not, but they all have in common a shear. Answer the last answer, Rabashi Mavidam. Sorry, the fifth answer, Rabashi says from the city of Avida. Amar Aveda, Kikton is doing a cutter. We're talking about those Avedas that if you did it deliberately, you get cutters. Abba's doing a lav like Tani. But if the mazy there's a lav, if you swear she was beat, you don't get cutters, you get a lav. And we're not talking about those cases. Talking more about the Osham. There's doine lav when you steal from the base of Migdash, stealing. According to Rebbe, Hazid b'mila yechai misa. He learns chet from Truma, just like Truma yechai misa, so too by mila. Chacham say it says the meisuvai only by Truma you get killed, but not by things that you learn from Truma, which is you don't get killed. So according to Chacham, it's only lav. The Yashin is doine lav of Tani. The answer is I'm talking about the 4 chatois, what they have in common. You want to introduce Shavuot, which is a chatas. I'm telling you, the chatos, we're talking about only those that involve curse, not a lot. Ravina gives the final answer. Shavuot, the only thing which are limited to food. Shavuot could be chal on anything. I won't sleep. I will sleep. I'll throw a rock. Things which don't do with eating, and therefore we don't mention that. Like Tony, what says when we hagdish, you can make things hagdish which are not in food. For example, I ate some avonim. You can make hagdish wood. Put on mizbeach or whatever. You can do other hagdish also not necessarily food items. Elig Moshe, you're right. Kiktani midil chayla midil mamashasha. Things all have to do with something tangible. Shvuah the chayla midil mamashasha. Shvuah says I won't sleep. There's nothing tangible here, or I will sleep. Nothing tangible here. We're not talking about that. You're going to share isha like Tani. We'll pause here.
Rava give any answers, or just
No, these are answers for Rava. What answer you not at all. Ravina. Even though Ravina is a contemporary, before Ravina was the Rosh Hashiva of Rav Ada, who was a Talmud of Rava. And remember, Rava said to Rav Ada, "Listen to your Rebbe. Listen to your Rebbe." A few days ago, and Rav Zayda definitely said Rav Zayda is actually older. Rav Zayda was older, but then you have Rav Ashi Mavid. I don't know who when he lived. Don't know.